Hello, I'm Deborah Davis.
And I'm Ashley Braswell.
We're going to talk about collaboration between museums and archives in order to document African American history. We hope you enjoy it. Ashley, why don't you tell us about Roy Copeland, Roy and Cheryl, who are they, their work, their place at VSU, and how they got started collecting?
Sure. So Dr. Copeland is a local lawyer in Valdosta and is also a professor at Valdosta State University. His wife, Dr. Cheryl Copeland, used to teach in the Valdosta City School System and now currently works with the Valdosta court system. Their love for collecting items began in 1989 when Dr. Copeland said he didn't want anything for Christmas. And so Cheryl surprised him with his favorite athlete, a signed pair of boxing gloves by Muhammad Ali. From there, that love of collecting historic pieces parlayed into a 74-piece collection. Better?
All right, yeah. Tell us about the Harley Langdale Junior College of Business and their relationship to Dr. Copeland and to this collection.
So, as I mentioned, Dr. Copeland is an associate professor at the Harley Langdale Junior College of Business. When he and his wife Cheryl decided that they wanted to gift their collection to an entity, their first thought was the College of Business. So he decided to meet with the then dean, Dr. Lester Wayne Plumley, to have a discussion about the collection being gifted to the College of Business.
Yes, and at some point in that discussion, it came up that the archives was going to have to be involved in this gift and this museum.
Absolutely.
Okay. These are a variety of items from the collection. So tell us how they came in and some things about this collection.
Sure. Well, first I would note that this collection is unique and this museum is unique because it is a wide variety of items. The focus is from historic to athletic to musician. And the good thing about this collection is every piece came in already with a description of the piece, so it was very, very easy to work with.
All right. They were already contextualized within the frame, so there's a good bit of museum work that didn't have to be done. All right. The VSU Archives and Special Collection collects broadly across the VSU record groups, South Georgia, Georgia Collections, and in support of curriculum. For the last 10 to 15 years, we have tried to acquire collections relating to African American history. The school is 35 to 40% African American, and when I took over in 1998, there were 2 collections even remotely related to African Americans in the archives. I wanted the archives collections to reflect the student body. We now have 25 excellent collections related to African Americans and culture, and some of these are large. Some of these collections have been donated and some we have purchased. We also spend about 2/3 of our special collections book and paper budget on African American history. So we've added a lot of books and rare items, many of which we have digitized. Since integration in 1963, more of our collections in the VSU record group reflect our more diverse student body, but our well-documented collections in this record group skew prior to integration. We also have a large art collection and have made an active effort to collect art by and relating to African Americans, even commissioning a piece for the library by a nationally known African American artist. The Copeland collection is by far the most versatile and interesting collection we have taken in, and it is changing a lot of what we have to offer. When we took in the Copeland collection, we photographed and described it. At first, we kept those records away from the public, but as we have clarified the role of archives with the collection, we have included it in our archive space we've included in our archive space system, and we have included digital objects for within our archive space collection. So, and we indicate whether something's on display or not on display. So people can come to the archives, they can view online all the items in the Copeland collection. We can pull out items that they can use, and they can go to the collection and see the items that are on display. So it was a big job to get everything described and done, but it's an important part of our contribution to the museum. All right, we'd like to play a little video for you that expresses the vision of the museum.
My name is Roy Copeland. I'm an associate professor of management, Valdosta State University. This collection belongs to the community. What you see here is maybe about 1/3 of the entire collection. I think it's important that we have kids come to this museum and learn a little more about African American history. Obviously, there are iconic figures, starting from the very beginning of enslavement of African Americans in this country, going up through the present day of Barack Obama, and every person in between. You know, when we talk about this city, state, this nation, it's about all people, and the stories of all people, individually and collectively, should be shared. With this project, there are several folks who contributed mightily to ensure that it happened. But not just happen, but it happened at a level where it is something that we can all say, this is a job well done. You will leave with something that perhaps you didn't know before. And that's what Valdosta is about. Learning something and building on it.
All right, so there was a vision and there was stuff. How do you create a museum, Ashley?
So you then have to figure out how you're going to fund it. And so we pulled together members from the community that had a vested interest in seeing this dream of the Copelands come to fruition. And 6 individuals, actually couples, came together to help fund the renovation process for the museum. 5 of those groups funded $7,500 each, and then the 6th gave an in-kind gift of $25,000 to fund all of the lighting for the museum. And all of a sudden, the dream began to take flight.
Yes, and don't forget, there was a significant financial contribution from the Harley Langdale College of Business in itself.
Yes.
As well as external donors.
Yes.
And there is now a board.
Yes.
And the promise of?
Right now we have $75,000 committed in actual money and another $25,000 to $30,000 committed in-kind for future expansion.
And that is beyond the number we see here.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. We had to physically build the museum. I brought in experience on display and appropriate preservation issues involved in displays, how to get these kinds of things done on campus, because we have started 7 or 8 galleries across the library and some other campus buildings. So I had a lot of experience to bring with exhibits. But one of the things that impressed me so much about this museum was the way they set it up and created a way to come in. Can you tell about that process?
Sure. So when we envisioned the museum and how people would see it as they came in, we wanted it to be an experience from the moment that they walked in until the moment that they left. So one of the first things that they see as they walk in is that great picture of the Tuskegee Airmen. We loved that picture and thought it was so appropriate, and then later found out that one of those individuals, Major Carol S. Woods, was the cousin of Dr. Roy Copeland's father. So that image just began and took on a new life. As you pass that image and go into the museum, it's a quaint space. So the museum was designed and set up so that people could see items from any vantage point. They had the room to spread out, stand back from items like the abolishment of slavery piece, and had the freedom to move around the room and take in everything educationally that they were seeing. On the other side of that room is an interactive space where videos are logged so that you can read about an activity or a historic event and then go over and watch it and learn more about that within the same space. So the whole point and the whole vision was so that everybody could get something out of the museum and leave with education that maybe they didn't have when they came.
Okay, marketing the museum. Tell me why that was important and how you got on USA Today.
Well, we had never had a museum like this on campus, so marketing this space was incredibly important. And thankfully, we had a graduate assistant at the time that was crucial in helping us get that kind of achievement in the news. She worked tirelessly to reach out to every website, every association, every media outlet that she could possibly do to not only increase the visibility of the museum, but to stretch the footprint so that it was no longer a local community resource, but more of a regional opportunity for visitors.
Okay, here is an example of some of the different ways that she reached out. So there's community outreach, social media, magazines, TV, all kinds of stuff. And this was from a report on the impact of it.
Yes.
So
she also worked diligently to work within campus lines to reach out to fellow faculty members to ensure that they understood that there was a resource that classes could take advantage of, and began getting the ball rolling as far as having our own students to know where the museum was and to come by and see what types of educational opportunities that were there.
Programming. You have had audiences from the community to very young. I'd like for you to tell me about this children's program and how you modified the museum to reach such young children.
So this was a fun challenge. These kids were 4 and 5 years old. Most of them had never been to a museum before. And so we called in the forces and brought in some retired teachers to help us change the curricula to really be a great experience for this particular age group. And some of those changes made it where we changed the videos. Instead of having adult videos, we had Sesame Street, where B.B. King was featured, with music and fun activities that would really engage with the children. We also put down painter's tape, so each child knew where they were to walk. We positioned the painter's tape back so it was out of arm's reach, and so the items on the wall were not touched. And there were little feet that were put in place of every stop that they needed to make, telling them that there was something there for them to learn. The group was big. We saw about 150 students over a 3-day period. And so we had different sections in the museum suite so that we could really keep the number of kids in the actual museum to a minimum. So some were being read a story, while others were at a coloring station, while the third group was touring the museum, and it worked beautifully.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I've done stuff with pre-K and it's frightening. Okay, in the middle of this, because the museum opened in 2019, right?
That is correct, yes.
In fall of 2019, and then spring happened and COVID happened. What has been the impact of COVID on the museum? How long were you closed?
Sure.
How did you reopen? What were your rules?
Sure. So COVID definitely took some of the wind out of the sail. We had been open for about 2 months when COVID hit. We closed in March. Luckily, with the the first opening, the soft opening, and then the grand opening, we saw just at about 1,000 people, visitors coming through the museum. So we had a good start. Upon closing, we took that as an opportunity instead of a barrier. And we began working on the creation of a virtual tour so that we could still connect with our community and provide resources to local school systems that were looking for things that could be brought into the classroom instead of the class going on a field trip. We were closed for about 8 months-ish until opening back up with very restricted guidelines, not being able to have more than about 6 people in the museum at a time, and it was already a small space, so that was challenging. But we met that with a brave face and a smile, and continued to market the museum with the new capacity rules.
Great. All right. Along with when the museum was getting a lot of attention, people suddenly wanted to give to it. Well, of course, the museum is not an institution that can take things in. So those items would come to the archives. We made a rule that while the Copeland collection itself may be a loan, everything else we would take in would be a gift to the museum. Our other related material would come into the archives as archival material. Because of the museum, people have approached the museum, have approached Ashley wanting to donate stuff. Ashley passes them on to the archives, and I explain the ways that items come into the archives and may be used in the museum or may be used in archives, and send them a deed of gift and a digital deed of gift and explain the process. So far in the last 4 to 6 months, we've been approached 4 to 5 times and taken in some very interesting things. Archives now has over 25 collections related to African American history, of which the Copeland is the richest. We are teaching with the history department a perspectives class on archives and libraries for historians. Since getting the Copeland collection, we have revised the topic to cover African American history in the U.S., and they do archival research. They visit the Copeland. We have Roy Copeland come in as a visiting speaker. All our readings relate to African American history, and so they can use our collections or Copeland collections for paper topics that they do their research on. It's been a really big success, and people have used the Copeland collection stuff the Copeland collection has brought to us, and our regular collections to do the work. There's some public programming in our future. Ashley?
So Copeland Museum and Archives has partnered with Africana American Studies and other campus groups to present a variety of Black History Month activities. And as you can see, some of those activities are listed here. The point is for our students to really understand the combination of rich history that BSU is wanting to offer to both our students and the community. So speaker opportunities where you can hear different stories from what individuals from our community have experienced.
And we're each sponsoring a speaker. I'm bringing in one whose archival collection we have. You're bringing in one, and we're going to make sure that they happen during Black History Month as part of Africana Studies and other groups.
That's right. And finding ways to get the students involved to increase their knowledge about not only the museum, but also archives so that they can continue to visit.
I think the scavenger hunt is going to be a big success if we give out the right prizes.
Yes. Well, and that TikTok opportunity too, to get more of their friends to watch about what's here.
Yeah, and we'll be putting in an art gallery exhibit, and there are other things that the wider group is doing. So we're excited about our public programming and current collaborations.
The collaborations are so important because collaborations not only increase visibility, but you can gain better ideas, good things to move forward to when you have independent people who are also invested in what you're doing.
Yeah, And the neatest thing about these are the museum's collaborations, but I sit on the board, and these have become my collaborations as well. So there's always been a opportunity within this position to advocate for the archives as well as for the museum. So we're kind of in lockstep together, both getting better. And it's been a really good opportunity.
Well, and I think as you look at these collaborations, you can see that they're on a faculty or administration level, but those collaborations also lean to the students, because when you look at the VSU History Department, that has rendered volunteers from the student body to assist the museum with tours and helping in a historian type of way. Or when looking at the marketing department, you think about the collaboration with how marketing students can assist with the marketing needs.
Yes. Okay. That's the end of our presentation. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to take them.